on TLU after this session. So before we start, I'm just going to introduce Caitlin. So Caitlin is the Vice President of the Solutions Center of Excellence, so otherwise known as the COE, sorry, where she leverages over 11 years of experience to drive customer success, optimize product usage, and deliver comprehensive training solutions. So currently, Caitlin leads the Center of Excellence, ensuring customers not only adopt but thrive using TraceLink solutions. So in this tech talk today, she's going to be explaining the TraceLink difference. So talking about the technical aspects that make TraceLink network unique and how it makes it, TraceLink's network makes the digital exchange scalable and makes end-to-end visibility possible. Before I hand over to Caitlin, I'm just going to go through our antitrust guidelines, which you're probably familiar with, but just to recap, our courses are public, so we just ask you not to engage in any discussions around pricing, deal making, selling, promoting, or any other activities which could be seen as anti-competitive. As always, if the discussions are approaching these boundaries, just say so, and I will stop the discussion thread. And for our class guidelines, again, because our courses are public and we have a limited time frame, and we just ask you to refrain from initiating any discussions about company-specific examples. Having said that, if you do have any questions, please, you will have the opportunity at the end to ask any questions. I have a couple myself, and then I'll be unmuting the lines to see if anyone has any questions. And if you do have any kind of use case specific questions, I can take them away and we can look into them further for you. So handing over to Caitlin now. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Laura. Okay, so today what I want to go through today are all of the building blocks that make TraceLink different than maybe a traditional company where you're exchanging, transactions, whether it be the serialized transactions or whether it be traditional B2B transactions like ASNs or purchase orders, invoice, etc. So we're going to start sort of at the top, sort of the difference between a platform and an application company. So applications are purpose-built to solve a business need. So if you're familiar with TraceLink, you're probably familiar with the applications around compliance. So whether it's EU compliance, whether it's track and trace, US, those have been specifically built to meet, obviously, the government regulations around those, right? But what TraceLink did is they saw that we had all of these digital exchanges being used on our network, and we said, how can we take it a step further? And so what TraceLink did is TraceLink built what we call the Opus platform. And when you think about platforms, you can think about platforms as more of a toolkit. So they offer the ability to sort of create from scratch or tailor existing solutions to meet your business needs. So platform companies sort of open up all of your opportunities to take the business in all different directions. So before we were all very hands down, heads down, trying to make sure that we were meeting the compliance regulations. But as we take a step back and as we sort of come out of that, if we see all of the digital connections that we've made through serialization, what else can we do to take advantage of all of those digital connections? And so TraceLink has invested in creating this platform that sort of offers up more of a toolkit where you can meet your business needs as opposed to sort of just solving that point solution for compliance. So how did we do that, right? How did we take that and make it slightly different than maybe other platform companies that you're used to? So how we did that was a little bit different is we have these different things that we call applications versus solutions. And we have sort of decoupled them from each other. So we have applications, right? And those are the underlying infrastructure down here. They're the business logic. They're the APIs. They're our canonical data model. And I'll get into what a canonical is in just a minute. And there are base workflows. So essentially, you can think about the application as being either the APT or US compliance or something like that. And then the solution is really the user interface, or just the screens that you interact with on a day-to-day, when the screens that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. They're also the data model where you can change them and make them specific to you. They are the workflows as well as the roles or policies. So when we say that you can tailor something, what we're really talking about is that you can tailor the solution to meet your business need. So for example, if you were using APT to exchange business transactions, say ASNs or purchase orders, but you wanted a workflow for an approval step, right? You didn't want that purchase order to go automatically. You wanted to first review it, make sure that it was accurate before you submitted that to your partner. Well, you could use the solution and you could change that to meet your specific business needs. Things like that. So there's a lot of different abilities within the solution for you to augment and change it. And that's really unique because TraceLink's never had the ability for you to change anything before. With our existing compliance applications, because they were really driven by what the government was saying, there wasn't really a need to change them, right? Because we had to do whatever the government was telling us to do. But as we think beyond that, we think about what other data can we exchange besides serial numbers, right? We've spent all this time investing in these data connections with our CMOs, with our 3PLs, with our upstream partners or downstream partners, depending on where you are in the supply chain. What else can you do? And then how can you make that work within your business requirements, right? So we have the ability for you to make that unique as you think about sort of the next phase in your digitalization process. So this is very unique to TraceLink. It's a little bit different, right? So when we say, we have a platform and we have the ability for you to change things, not only do we have that, but the way that you change that on our platform is through a no-code user interface that allows you to make all of those changes. So it allows any user to design and build a solution without programming code. So all of the changes I just talked about, whether it's adding a workflow step, whether it's changing the roles and policies, whether it's adding additional fields, so maybe you want additional data in your transaction. You do that all through a no-code user interface that is really drag and drop. And so through that, you can create really complex solutions, but you don't need any programming code to do that. So as long as somebody understands how to use the UI and understand which fields they want to drag and drop, they can use the user interface, they can drag it, they can test it. If they want to tweak something, they can go back, they can change it. And so it makes it really easy for you to make these complex solutions quick and easy, and then edit them on the fly. So if your business is changing and you say, okay, well, this isn't working out, I need to remove the approval step because that's just taking too long, right? That's just meaning that my purchase orders aren't going out quick enough. You can easily go back in, you can remove that field, that requirement, you can save it, and it's automatically going to be up there for your users to use. So it makes it really easy for you to customize and configure the solutions that you're creating. And what that all that really means is that we're sort of democratizing and speeding up the development process, right? Before you had to wait for TraceLink to develop anything that you needed that was specific to your business process. This sort of puts all of that development in your hands. Not only does it do that, it allows users that aren't coders to really be able to do that in a quick and easy way. So this whole no-code solution really unlocks the power of the TraceLink platform, unlike anything that we've really done before. So it's really exciting. People are going to be able to use it. They're going to be able to build these different solutions to meet whatever your business needs, right? So if you think beyond compliance, what are you doing with in your day-to-day business that we might be able to help, and how can we tailor it specific to those business needs? So that's really down here, if you can see, that's really sort of the base of the TraceLink solutions is our platform, and how we have made it easy for you to use so that you can build on top of our applications. But not only do we have a platform, we have our network, which you should all be familiar with by now, right? So our network is that digital exchange of data that you guys are used to exchanging serialization data with. But the network creates a single digital twin on every company in the supply chain. So what makes TraceLink really unique in this aspect is that every entity that is exchanging data on our network is been added by our specific network operations team as a single digital twin of that company. And that's really important, because if you think about other networks, if they're not managing and maintaining that, and there's 6 of you, well, then you're going to have to manage 6 different instances. You can think about the network sort of like a social network, like a social media, right? On LinkedIn, for example, there's only sort of 1 of you on LinkedIn. And that sort of means that when you're connecting to that other entity, that you can be sure that you're talking to the person that you think is there. And we do that by uniquely identifying and authenticating the network entities that we put on there. So we have an entire team of people who's responsible for making sure that every entity on the network has been uniquely identified and authenticated, so that you know that there's a single instance of you on our network. And that's really unique to TraceLink, because a lot of times other networks won't necessarily manage it in that way, which means that there could be duplicates of those and things like that, and they're not managing it on an ongoing basis. So when you're when you're connecting to TraceLink, you can really ensure trust when you're connecting and exchanging data with entities on the network, right? You want to make sure that when you're sending data to the partner on the other side, that you're sending it to the correct partner. And so you can be ensured that TraceLink is authenticating all of those network entities as we add them, and that there's only a single one of them. So when you're connecting, you know that it's the right one. So our network, right, digitalizes our supply chain entities on a single platform, eliminating those point-to-point integrations. So by having a single network entity for everyone, that means that it's managed by our network success team. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a global dedicated network success management team. So early on, when we started working on this problem, we realized that we needed a dedicated team to manage the network, that we couldn't just let it grow organically, that the network needed a team that was dedicated to managing them, both the customers and the partner. And so that's really unique to TraceLink, that we have this dedicated team. And so they are responsible for onboarding and maintaining those network entities. And so because they're the ones that are really responsible for all that onboarding work, right? They're going to make sure that your partners are on the network, that they have access to the network, that they are connected. So if they need a B2B connection, like an AS2 or an FTP, if they need a specific format, we'll manage that for you, as well as maintaining it over time. So as we know, companies change, systems change. And so just because we create it and set it once, doesn't mean that it's going to be that way forever. And so our team will make sure that over time that they're managing and maintaining those network entities for you. So by doing that, it's really reducing the onboarding and maintenance costs and overall support effort for you guys, right? So those would be additional costs and staff members that you would have to have. And so really, you can think about the NSM team, the Network Success Management team, as augmenting your team at no additional cost to you. So you get these whole group of people that work at TraceLink, and they're going to help onboard, maintain, and manage all of that for you, so no additional cost. So that's really reducing your overall cost to digitalize all of your transactions. So then we have, integrate one. So we have the platform, right? We talked about that, how you can change things, make them unique to your business process. That sits on top of our network. That's our digital exchange. But what's so specific about that digital exchange, right, is that you're only exchanging data with that one network entity. And that's managed and maintained by our network success team, which allows our integrate once. And so the way that you're going to integrate with TraceLink is that for every company on the network, you only ever have to integrate one time for each transaction, regardless of the number of partners. And you can do that because there's only one of you on the network, right? If there was more than one of you on the network, you would have to integrate anytime a partner was trying to connect to any entity for you on the network. So it's really important that we manage and maintain our network and that there's a single instance of you, because that is what enables our integrate once model. Because without that, obviously, we'd have to integrate n number of times. So because of that, there's no need to create and maintain unique point-to-point integrations with the partner, because you're always going to integrate with your instance on the TraceLink network. You only ever have to do that once. So not only do you only have to do it once, maybe you're saying to yourself, okay, well, I can only do it once, but my partner's going to need a specific format. And they're not going to be able to, take the IDOC that my SAP system says or something like that. Well, TraceLink has fixed that problem too. So here, first, before we move on, so, for the integrate once, imagine, if this was the last integration that you ever needed to build, right? So imagine the time and the cost that you would be freed up for your IT resources to work on if they only ever had to integrate one time to TraceLink. But not only that, they only have to integrate one time in their own language, right? So a lot of the IT resources are out there trying to figure out, okay, well, what data mapping do I need? What can the partner take? It takes a long time. You have to align on formats. So TraceLink has thought about that too. And what we did is we came up with our canonical model. So a canonical is just our internal data format. So it's an internal data format, and what it does is it takes all of the fields from all of the different file formats, and it normalizes it into one single file format. Then from there, the backend consumes that single file format. So our applications only ever need to know how to speak in the canonical format. And then from there, we can build data mapping both inbound and outbound, right? So for example, you have down here, right? Say you're sending data in the TLXML, right? Maybe you call the lot number a batch. So in your file format, it's going to say batch, but in our canonical, it'll say lot number. And maybe when it goes out in an X12, it's going to say something completely different, right? In some other format that they have specified. But because our application only has to understand how to speak one language, we can take all of the different formats in and all of the different formats out. And you never have to worry about the different types of partners, the different types of formats that your partners will exchange data in. So not only can you have the last integration that you ever have to build, but you don't have to worry about what your partners are doing, right? You can come to TraceLink as you are. You can come with whatever file format that you want to use, whatever native file format your system is using. TraceLink will work with you to map that into our canonical. And then from there, everything outside of that is not, you don't have to worry about, right? Because the TraceLink network success team will make sure that the partners are getting the format and the data in the way that they want to see that. So again, if you look at all of the different building blocks, right, they all come together to make TraceLink what it is, right? So we have our platform, which allows you to make sure that we're meeting your business needs. That sits on top of this network layer, right, where there are almost 300,000 supply chain entities exchanging data. But very importantly, there's only one of you and your company, right? Because we are managing that with our network success team, right? We're making sure that the entities on the network are who they say they are, that the users are correct, that we're not duplicating entities, et cetera. So we're managing all of that. And then it allows our integrate once, right? So you only ever have to build one integration, right? And that's the last integration you'll ever have to build for a given transaction type. So imagine if you went to your IT people and said, you only ever have to build one integration for a purchase order, and we're going to be exchanging it with every entity, right? And then if they come back to you and say, oh, okay, yeah, but I'm going to have to know what the other, party on the other side is saying us. Well, you say no, because TraceLink has the canonical, which will translate data from however you're sending it to however they're sending it, right? So it's sort of a universal translator, if you will. So as I mentioned, right, our interoperate with everyone uses our canonical model, which allows you to integrate in your own format, in your own integration method. And since each partner is using their own format, then the companies only need to maintain their own integration, and you're isolated from those partner changes. So not only do you only have to build one, but you don't have to worry if someone is saying upgrading their ERP, right? There's a lot of ERP upgrades going on right now. That's a big thing in the industry. So you don't have to worry about that, because again, you're only exchanging data into our canonical, and then we'll maintain and manage those changes for your partners on the outbound. Oops. So imagine if you could onboard 100% of your partners, regardless of what system format they use, right? So a lot of the other questions we get is, well, what if a partner is using an SAP system and I'm not, right? Well, we can onboard you using whatever format you want, and we can onboard to their APIs or their iDocs. And if a partner doesn't have a system, we have a user interface where they can actually key in the data directly. So no matter if your partner is using a system or if they're using the user interface, you'll be able to get that data electronically into your own system. So again, no matter what the partner is doing, you don't have to worry about that, because we have our network success team that will make sure that they're onboarded, and regardless of what format or what technical capabilities, they'll be able to start using the system. Okay, so the next thing, right? So you might be saying, that's great, right? We can build all these integrations, but it's still going to take a lot of time for me to onboard all of my partners, to do all of that work. Well, TraceLink makes that easy through a configuration that we call linking. So you guys might be familiar with that, but a link is a connection between two entities on the network, right? So there's only ever one of you on the network, and so you need to find that other party on the network and make that link, right? So that link is done through simple configuration, and once you've made that, you can start exchanging data on the network. So it's done in the user interface, and it's done, it can be done by an admin. It doesn't have to be done by an IT staff person. And if you're already exchanging data for that same transaction, it's simple configuration to start exchanging data for the purchase order. So, for example, today, if you have a partner that wants to receive a purchase order from you electronically, you probably have to go back to your IT staff or whoever manages your EDI, get on the roadmap, make sure that they have time. They're going to tell you that it's going to take 6 to 12 months to do that. And so you need to be put in the schedule, and it requires a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of effort. Well, if both entities are already exchanging purchase orders on the TraceLink network, you don't have to do any of that, right? Because it's all done through simple user interface configurations in a matter of steps. You can automatically start sending that purchase order to whoever needs to receive it on the other end. So you can remove the IT staff from there, so you don't have to, take their time, their effort, and they can be using their time and effort to do other things. So imagine if you onboarded new partners in a matter of minutes and a few clicks, right? Imagine if you didn't have IT staff. Imagine if you could do it, you didn't need your IT staff anymore to onboard partners. What could they be freed up to do? I'm sure they have lots of different projects that they would like to be working on, in addition to, onboarding these people to start exchanging digital data. And so through our simple user interface and through the ability, because you don't have to redo any of the B2B connections and any of the B2B, it is simple configuration to start exchanging data with that next partner. And so you'll be able to pass that task on to the people who are, say, maybe managing those business relationships, right? As opposed to IT, those people who talk to those partners every day. They'll actually be able to be empowered to onboard them to start exchanging digital data without having IT. And so that's very powerful. But it can only be done because you're only ever integrating once, right? Once the integration is built, you no longer are relying on those IT staff to do that work. But you can only integrate once, if you have a network that's being managed and maintained by a team of people to ensure that on your digital network, there's only one of you. So all of these things sort of come together, as you see, to sort of make TraceLink different. And this is why, we are able to exchange data so quickly. We can do it for thousands of entities, thousands of partners in a really short matter of time. Okay, so we talked all about the data exchange. We talked about how you configure the data exchange, and that's great. But you also want to be able to see the data, right? And so maybe you want to be able to have a user interface where you're actually able to see and act upon that data. And so all of these things that we have, the configuration, is built on what we call multi-enterprise applications. So multi-enterprise applications like Mint, for example, allow customers and trade partners to have a shared truth of their business. Because through that link that you've created, you are going to have a shared view of the data. You know that you can be looking at the same piece of information at the same time. And this, in addition to having the same view of the data, it also solves the security card concerns that your IT people probably have about giving access to internal systems, right? So today, if someone wanted to see something in your ERP, I'm sure your IT team would not allow you to invite an external partner to see that data. But because these people are in their own network entity and you're giving them visibility through that linking, they're going to have their own user access. So you don't have to worry about the concern of giving them access to their internal system. Through the TraceLink process, they're going to have access automatically as part of that linking process. And so they'll be able to see the same view. So through one link, there's one view of the data. So you can sort of think about it, maybe as Excel versus Google Sheets. So for example, Excel, you exchange through email. I have a version on my desktop. You have a version on your desktop. If I edit my version, well, I have to resend it to you, and maybe you don't have the newest version that you're looking at. And so you're constantly trying to go back and forth and make sure that everybody has the same data. If you're familiar with Google Sheets, you have a single Google Sheet. If I am editing that Google Sheet, you are seeing those updates in real time because we are viewing the same data and the same thing at the same time. So you can think about the TraceLink user interface as sort of the Google Sheet, right? You will both have the same access and the same view of the data. So you won't have to be going back and forth all the time to make sure that everybody has the same information. So imagine the time that you could save by working on all the same data, right? Imagine the time you can save in sending emails, phone calls, making sure that you have the right information, all of those different things, right? So that is the top of our tower of success, right? So this is really what makes TraceLink different and how we built all of these building blocks, and one of them builds on top of each other, but you sort of need all of them to come together to have a really successful collaboration and orchestration of your business processes. So just a quick reminder, right? So the platform that down here, that's sort of the base level of everything that we do. that really lets you tailor your solution to meet your business needs. So we realized again that as we move beyond compliance and move into sort of your business, we're no longer being told what we have to do by the government. And so we need a way for you to use that toolkit to really change things and make them meet your specific business needs. So we spent a lot of time investing in that platform to give you that ability. And then our platform, our network sits on top of our platform. And as I mentioned several times, right? What makes TraceLink's network so different is that you are one company on the network, right? It's really important because if there's more than one of you, sort of the rest of our tower sort of falls apart, right? If you pull one of these blocks out from our tower, everything sort of comes crumbling down, right? So you need to make sure that you are one entity on the network. And the only way to do that is to really make sure that you have a dedicated network success team who's there managing, maintain, ensuring that the entities on the other side are authorized, et cetera. All of those things come together, right, to allow that single integration to the network, right? So you can't have integrate once if there's more than one of you on the network, right? And so that single integration allows that to be used for everyone because of our canonical model, right? So that canonical model is our shared truth that the back end uses and allows people to speak in their own language with the single format in the middle, taking care of all of those translations and those transforms of data for you. And then, you can scale this through configuration. And so all of these things are great, but even if it takes a long time, you still wouldn't be able to scale. And so the simple configuration that you do to make the linking allows you to be really scaling these connections and these data, the data flowing quickly for you. And then finally, everyone has that shared view of the data, right? So we want to be exchanging data, and that's great, but we also want to make sure that people have visibility into that data. And so our multi-enterprise applications allow, through the linking, people to have a shared view of the data, and everyone's working off of the same information. So what does that mean for your business, right? So the platform is really endless business possibilities, right? So, we don't know what your business needs are. We can probably guess and help you come up with some ideas, but you know your business best and you know what your business needs. And so, TraceLink can, help you and mapping how you might use our applications to meet your business needs. And the network, right? So you can ensure, trust in the data you're exchanging, right? It is important that you trust when you're exchanging data and making those connections with the network. The network success team is really an extension of your team at no cost, right? So we will augment them. We will do all the maintenance for your partners. We'll manage them on onboarding them. And those are, team members that you don't have to hire, right? And in today's day and age, we're all spread very thin. We all wear 10 different hats, and right? And so it's one thing that you can sort of offboard to TraceLink and you don't have to worry about. And then, the integrate once, right? It reduces time, effort, and cost, right? Imagine if your IT team only ever had to integrate one time, right? That was the last integration that they ever built. I bet if you went to your IT team and said that, they wouldn't believe you. But I promise it is possible, right? But only because we have all of these things, right? If you pull one of these blocks away, everything falls down. And then interoperate with everyone, right? No one's excluded from the network. As I mentioned, we will work with you in whatever format works for your company. We'll work with partners that don't have a system. Maybe they just want to use the user interface, but you can be ensured that we'll make sure that we're interoperating with anybody that's out there that wants to start exchanging data. And then through the linking, right, you don't need IT resources to onboard those partners. And so again, that frees up all of these resources who are very busy and have a lot of projects on their plate. What other things could they be doing if they weren't trying to build, EDI connections? And then obviously overall, right, if you have a better supply chain orchestration with your partners because you have, better information, real-time information, you're not always going back and forth in spreadsheets, what better business orchestrations and outcomes could you have by doing all of this? So that's really what I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Caitlin. I'm just going to jump in quickly just to ask a couple of questions first, then see if anyone has any questions. That was really interesting. I've heard, about the different file formats and being able to convert them into canonical formatted files, which is what TraceLink uses to process the data. But based on any previous use cases you've seen, are there any preferred file formats that work best, maybe, I guess, with the canonical or as a kind of, like a package being used together, or does it really does not matter at all?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Some of the common formats that people use are EDI, right? Because that's the traditional way of exchanging data is EDI in the United States and Artifact in Europe. SAP has its own format, which is the IDOC. But other systems have the ability for us to integrate natively with their APIs. And so I would say that, generally there's, any format that we can take out there. I will also comment back on the EDI, right? So EDI, came around because the industry realized that it needed to exchange data. And because there were all these disparate systems out there, the only way they were going to do that was to create standards, right? And so that's where the EDI standards come from. Artifact, that's where obviously GS1 has standards around ePCIS files, et cetera. And so those are very good, but what TraceLink did is it sort of took that whole concept of needing a standard and flipped it on its head, right? Because what we're trying to say and trying to do is that you don't need a standard. You just tell us what you want and we'll build it for you. And because we have our canonical model, we don't necessarily need to know how each other is exchanging data with each other. We just need to know how it's going to exchange data with the canonical format. So I think it's a real paradigm shift for people, especially those folks in your organization that manage your EDI systems, because it's never been done this way before. So they're going to think, oh, well, I need to know how my partner is exchanging data, and I need to make sure that we align on our data formats. But what we have done and what we have proven, right, through the use of our network and our B2B integrate once, interoperate with everyone model is that we've really proven out that no, you don't necessarily need to have those point-to-point connections, right? You don't need to know how your partner is exchanging data, just that your partner's willing to exchange data.
And the integration isn't a quicker process if both entities are using the same file format.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what file format they're using. The process is probably even quicker because you don't have to have those back and forth that say, okay, well, I want you to use this format. Well, I want you to use that format. And then you have to agree on a shared version of the format. Because you come to TraceLink and say, this is what I want to use, and we'll map to that. And then, the other party can say, I want to use this, and we'll map to that, and we'll be done with it, right? You don't have to have those long drawn out processes. Because even with standards like EDI and X12 in ePCIS, standards are up for interpretation. People have built extra things in their business processes. And so while standards are good, they can really only get us so far. And that's why TraceLink was trying to solve that difficult problem by just saying, nope, just come as you are, tell us what you want, and we'll do it for you.
Great, thank you. And just one last question, sorry. What would happen if further down the line, if a company acquires another company with different systems and file formats, how would that affect things?
That's very common. That's very common in the pharmaceutical industry. Yeah. So we can certainly support that. So for companies, we can support N number of file formats for the same transaction. So if you have an SAP system that you want to use iDocs, but then you also have another format for another system for purchase orders, we can support N number of transaction formats for any given company. So the system is very flexible. We will work with you to figure out what your business needs are. But while we say integrate once, obviously, if you have business needs that require different file formats, we can certainly support that too. So it's not limited to one, to be fair. But if you do have one system, then you don't have to build all these point-to-point connections. But yeah, we can support multiple formats for you as well. And that is very common, and we have seen that a lot over the years. So
the receiving party system wouldn't affect the party receiving the data. It's just
no,
something that would
and if
happen.
they have a requirement to have different file formats as well, we can support that as well. So both sending and receiving, right? So
okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, I'll open up the line, see if anyone in the audience has any questions for Caitlin. Or if you'd rather just put a question in the chat box, I'll keep an eye out for any questions coming through there as well. No? Oh, Hung, you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question related to it sounds great, but it seems like I do need some more information on that. Where can I get some more information on this? Because I it's not gelling with me, or maybe I'm not the right person in the organization to receive this type of information. So I mean, this presentation, do you have any specific use case or anything like that that you could share or talk about that people
well,
are
yeah, I mean,
for this?
you're probably doing serialization today, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so this is how we do serialization, right? It's not specific to any specific business process. So for example, I will guess that you are exchanging commissioning data with your CMOs, for an example, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you have a system on the TraceLink application, and your CMO is also, right? So if we get down here at this bottom part, your CMO is also an entity on the network, right? And so what we did as part of network success is we probably reached out to that CMO and we said, okay, you're going to send us commissioning information for on behalf of MAHU. And we worked with them to figure out what file format they need. So some use EPCIS, some use PML formats. We also have a user interface that they can use to commission serial numbers, a generic XML file format, things like that. So the network success team worked with that CMO to onboard them to our network. And if they were already exchanging data with another MAH before you came on, well, then it was as easy as, calling them up and linking and then saying, hey, can you start sending serialization data, commissioning data on behalf of MAH? So all of these things here are not specific to any sort of business process. It is just how the overall TraceLink system works, whether it's exchanging serial numbers, whether it's exchanging shipment data, whether you want to do business level transactions like purchase orders or invoices. It's sort of just overall how the architecture of the TraceLink system works. Is that helpful? Does that make sense now or no?
Yeah, it does. So how does it, expand to the business process you just mentioned, right? I understand because I'm very specific to serialization, and that's a requirement that we have to meet, right?
Yeah, so you can just think about business transactions are just additional transactions, right? So a commissioning is essentially just information about your batch, right? It's specific serial numbers, but it's the lot number, it's the expiration date, it's the location that they were created, etc. Shipping, right? Information from your 3PL is similar to an ASN, an advanced shipment notice. It just happens to have serial numbers. So, if you came to us and said, I'm exchanging all of these, shipment notices, but I also want to get the invoices and purchase order exchange. They're just additional messages, and they all work the same way that you're doing today. It's just more and more data that's going to be exchanged through maybe the same partners, but maybe different partners, right? Maybe you want to onboard a different partner, but maybe you just want to exchange POs and invoices with your CMOs. I don't know, something like that, right? So you just think about it as, okay, more and more transactions that you're doing on top of the ones that you're already doing.
Okay, I got that. So serialization is easy to build because you already have these things defined, right? Lot, EXP, and all that already defined. Now you're talking about the invoices and PO and stuff like that. So you're saying that there's certain module that you could just link it and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
put
you could just, yeah,
together
you could just,
and then you could connect to the other enterprise, other company, like a trading partner that you could get the information as long as you have the agreement with them and they're in the system that you could communicate back and forth. Is
that's
that what
exactly
you're
right.
saying? You can expand out to your trading partner? Okay. Mm.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, you can just expand, to whatever transactions you want to do with whatever entities in your supply chain, right? So.
And this is where you're saying that the network success or there's a team of people behind the scene that is helping us to make that connection.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So
They
if
build the
you came to
block
us and
together. Okay. Like the
yeah,
work process you're talking about.
exactly. So if you came to us and said, okay, I want to start exchanging, whatever with my trade partners, right? Maybe, purchase orders, invoices, inventory balances, whatever it might be, we would, the network success team would support that and make sure that the entities on the other side are set up. They have whatever formats that they need, right? You don't have to worry about any of that. Again, you just be responsible for making sure that that configuration, that linking, which you do today, right? You link to your CMOs today, you link to your 3PLs today, make sure that's all done. But then we'll take care of the rest and make sure that they're exchanging data.
Okay. So they also, sorry, if anyone needs to ask some more question, just want to get a little bit more detail on that. So they also have to have TraceLink connection and everything, right?
They do, but they don't necessarily have to pay for it, right? So trade partners don't have to pay TraceLink for our service. So that, they wouldn't have to pay for that.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
So Hung, in the partner onboarding today for and TTS, so how when you send the invitations for serial number exchange and serialized operations manager, the network success manager will then accept the invitation and do the subscription configuration of the linking. So that exists in TTS today, but this is also going to be available, there is a team that does that. And also there's a new portal which you can go through, isn't there, Caitlin? So when you need to onboard a new partner, instead of going through support, you can contact the network success team directly. So it kind of bypasses support and it's kind of goes, streamlines you straight to the network success team for that partner onboarding. And also, if you want to see, so in terms of live training sessions, we do have a new training called the Network Administration Training, and that goes more into the process network and how to expand, so creating the shared workspaces and expand and populating that workspace as well. So that goes show you in the UI of Mint and how to create that process network basically based on different business processes. So if you want to see the actual application.
Yeah, thanks for that. So the takeaway on this is for me is very, dynamic and very fluid, yet you have all these connectivity. The example Laura, that you just mentioned earlier related to the connection and stuff like that, that's already built into the serialization solution, right? Whereas for this part of it, this process, like the business process you just talked about, you have to build those type of connection. What like the expression you say is build it once, the type of workflow and what that means and things like that, right? You have to build that before you can make that connection. Whereas the serialization piece, you click, 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 okay, GLN, and then SGLN, and then, okay, now they're mapped and, the speaking part is, the going back and forth communication is already there. Whereas I think this one, you still have to build it, and that's when you use the network success. Is that the thinking behind it? team to build
Well,
that?
so we do have other people who are exchanging, business level transactions. So if the entity on the other side is already exchanging data, then it would be, again, just a matter of clicks. But, as you mentioned earlier, if it's the first time they're exchanging that particular transaction, yes, we would have to build it. But once it's built once for anybody on the network, you would be able to take advantage of that. So we do have people, already exchanging these data. We would just have to look at your partners and see whether or not they were ones that have already been exchanging data or not.
Okay, so once you engage in this kind of services, then there's, I guess, a separate project team that will be
Yeah.
on TraceLink
Yep.
and to be able to make that translation. Got it. All
Yeah.
right. Understood.
Thanks for your questions. Does anyone else have any questions? No. Well, as always, if you do have any questions following this session, please feel free to email tracelinkuniversity@tracelink.com. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for hosting the Tech Talk today. And like I said, this recording will be posted on TraceLink University, and there'll be more of this coming up in TraceLink University, topics around MINs and live training sessions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take care,
you.
everyone. Bye. Bye.